taken. Just to give you numbers, there are more than 10,000 stations in India.
So you said Chandigarh station has about 35,000 footfall daily.
Every day.
The bigger cities in India
Yes.
who have a higher footfall.
Yes. I mean, India and railway stations you can only define it by the number of people that go in.
Yeah.
and out.
Should we say busy or chaotic?
The test of the design is that they take a person who can see, not associated with the design team,
Okay.
blindfold him or
Okay.
her,
Yeah.
and ask him to find his way around the station.
सबसे बड़ा चैलेंज कहाँ आता है जब आप रेलवे स्टेशन डिजाइन कर रहे होते हो?
The station structure that it needs to be now with the population that we're building for is going to be gargantuan. It is going to be massive. The through roof, the system that covers all of the platforms and the concourses is about 5 acres.
Okay.
So I'm not talking in terms of square meters.
Yeah.
I'm saying it is about 5 acres.
Yeah. What are a few aspirations of a daily user of a railway station? So हमारे जो रेलवे मिनिस्टर हैं मिस्टर अश्विनी वैष्णव एक ऑलरेडी बुलेट ट्रेन लॉन्च हो गई है फ्रॉम सूरत टू वापी. अब ऐसा लग रहा है कि जैसे इंडिया में बुलेट ट्रेन्स आ सकती हैं. इट्स अ पॉसिबिलिटी. Welcome back to Design and Dialogues. Today we're joined with architect Amin Nayar from ANA Design Studio. He has completed projects in over 56 cities in India, 7 countries across the globe, to a total of about 30 million square feet, which is crazy. He's operating in 2 countries, India and the UAE. Today we're going to delve into the topic of railway stations in India and what the future looks like for the said industry. Let's dive into this one dialogue at a time.
It's a nice timing. I like it.
Architect Amin,
Thank you.
welcome to Design and Dialogues. Thank you for being here.
Pleasure. Thank you.
So, obviously, we've talked about just a brief introduction of, you've done so many projects, and I'm sure it was one hell of an experience. Let's start, and we'll get straight into the topic if that's okay. What got you into designing railway stations?
Well, I think it's providence, and I'll take 20 seconds of your time on this. I visited the UK for the first time in 2011.
Okay.
And I remember walking through the St. Pancras station, and it had just been renovated a few years earlier. I was taking a train from there to Paris, and I remember going through that entire experience and thinking to myself, यार ये कौन लोग होते होंगे जो इतने बढ़िया प्रोजेक्ट डिज़ाइन करते हैं? So there was this wistful aspirational moment, partly wishing I could do it, and partly this voice in my head telling me कि हम कहाँ करेंगे, like tiny little architect from somewhere. And then cut to 22, we had been speaking to a few EPC companies to say that look, we could offer you services and so on. And I got a call from ACIL, Ahluwalia Contracts,
Okay.
Vikas Ahluwalia's office. And they said that we have a project that we'd like to discuss with you. I didn't know it was a railway station. But they had, at the back end, taken a sort of a corporate decision that they wanted to get into the railway station redevelopment. You are aware that the government has been pushing infrastructure projects, and the railway station redevelopment is a very large part of the vision of this government. Vikas's team had bid for projects, and I was not aware when I went for the meeting that this was for a railway station. And it was kind of revealed to me when we were there, and obviously, it was extremely exciting. I believe it was extremely generous of ACIL to look at us and say, okay, we could entrust these guys with something like this. To be honest, we had no prior experience of large transport. And I think it was that little wish, standing at St. Pancras 12, 13 years previously, that somebody heard upstairs and said, all right, tathastu.
Okay.
It was literally like that.
And what was your first railway station then? What was the name?
Chandigarh.
Okay.
Redevelopment of Chandigarh railway station.
Okay.
It's called a lighthouse project. At that point of time, it was supposed to be the first one to go live and to finish. It didn't. It's almost at the cusp of finishing now. I think about 80% of the work is done.
Oh, lovely.
But yeah, so literally providential. It was not planned, pursued, competed for, literally.
Okay. And because you're the first person that I'm speaking to who's designed, railway stations, can you tell me, or can you dumb it down for me by telling me if it's when you're assigned for such a project, is it just the railway station that you design, or is it the incoming and outgoing tracks as well?
No, you don't get into the tracks. So the tracks are owned by the railway.
Okay.
They have a separate entire division that deals with track laying, alignment, and traffic management.
Okay.
You are given the frequency of trains and the passengers that are there right now, and projected to happen over the next, in our case, 70 years. Given population, given economy. So there would be obviously a whole bunch of planners crunching numbers sitting somewhere who know that today, let's say 30,000 people are traveling out of a station, and then 60 years time, this is going to become 47,000 or whatever the case might be.
It's a lot of forecasting, basically.
So it is immense amount of planning, forecasting.
Yeah.
But I do not think that any private practitioner or somebody who's out of the railway system has any idea of how tracks are planned, laid, or how traffic is forecasted. I do not think that that is at all in our pay grade.
Okay. Speaking about railway stations, can you name one railway station that really stands out for you, both domestically and internationally?
I think internationally, for me, my all-time favorite remains St. Pancras.
Okay.
I think it was a brilliant station to begin with. It has incredible history that is very similar to a lot of big stations in our cities. It was at the peak of its performance, and then it sort of fell down. That neighborhood went to seed, and then there was a reinvigoration and redevelopment. The Channel Tunnel happened, and so on and so forth. And then the way it has been done now, I think it's one of the most sensitive, well-designed railway stations that is there in the world. There are several other notable examples, one near the WTC, but those are more from the wow, what a structure kind of a thing. But one thing that I learned working on these stations is that you need to have extreme humility from the standpoint of what you wish to state.
Okay.
You are a no one. I mean, you look at the numbers. For example, Chandigarh, 35,000 people. I mean, how can you actually decide or say that I am the one who decides the language of this? You can't really. So I think internationally, St. Pancras would probably be the finest that I think there is. There are several notable examples, and not for a moment saying it's the only one. In India, we are now beginning to have new stations. I think what we managed to achieve remains to be seen. Not even a single one of the new stations is fully functional yet.
Okay.
But from the history that we have, and I made it a point to visit quite a few. I think the ones that absolutely stand out and are burned in our psyche, I think top of the line would be VT, Victoria Terminus. I think about, somebody told me it is the most photographed building in the country.
Perhaps could be, yes.
Yes, and about 60% of Bollywood movies set in Mumbai have an opening shot of the VT. You have an opening shot from the VT with a pan out shot, and you know that you're in Mumbai. There is Havra station. I think it's a brilliant station. There is Chennai Central. I think brilliant. Mumbai Central again, brilliant.
And very busy ones as well.
These are, India and railway stations, you can only define it by the number of people that go in and out.
Should we say busy or chaotic?
Both.
Yeah.
Both. Busy is a nice way of saying it.
Yeah.
Definitely chaos is there. We can't wish it away. And I think it is also the reason why this exercise is required, which is currently being undertaken. Just to give you numbers, there are more than 10,000 stations in India.
Oh, wow.
So the task is really cut out, and obviously they're going to be graded. There are the metro stations like VT, like Howrah, Chennai Central. Chennai Central has already gone into redevelopment. Howrah, I think, is in the works.
Yeah.
VT is already under redevelopment. We had the honor of being associated for the schematic design of that as well. So there are several others. Ahmedabad is nearing completion. It's a big one. Gandhinagar already got built, but Gandhinagar, it's a good station. It's a nice station. It's a very interesting experiment in urban design with the overtrack areas being used for a hotel. I think Leela runs a 250 room or something property on top of the railway station. So it's a great experiment in what can happen. and obviously lots of learnings. I mean, we are a nation that is sort of going through a renaissance of relearning. There are things that are happening in the world, all of which are not applicable to India.
Of course.
Some of which we will have to find our own way and our own feet ourselves. And I think we're in a good place in that sense.
Okay, nice. And speaking of redevelopment, how often is an international station redeveloped? And what about India on contrary, in comparison?
I think it's a once in several lifetimes.
Okay.
St. Pancras and VT are twin stations. They were built 10 years apart of each other in the early part of the 20th century.
Okay.
1911 and 1921 or something like that. It's been developed once in 100 years. And I think you can't really do more than that. Because from the time you envisage a station to be redeveloped, to what happens in the interim to the economy of that region and the number of trains and passengers, to what happens in other sectors of the economy, suddenly there is a massive boom in aviation in India. And a lot of us who were only taking trains 15 or 18 years ago are literally only taking flights today. That doesn't mean that the trains are any less important, and we'll come to that in a moment. But I think a lot of factors influence the policy of when to do it, and then the actual act of getting it all together, from design to planning to engineering, construction, documentation, project management of managing trains. You can't shut down a station.
Yeah.
There are very few in the country that you can say, "ठीक है, इसको ना एक साल के लिए बंद कर दो." नहीं हो सकता. They are on the track from one place to another, or terminus, for example, VT or Howrah, where lakhs of people are coming in every day. You can't say, "Okay, guys, sorry, for the next 2 years you can't come here." It doesn't work like that.
Yeah.
So the logistics of getting it done is by itself a 7 to 8 or 10-year task.
Wow.
From the concept to the planning to the approvals to the design, engineering, construction, 10 years is easy.
And it cannot be done in pieces.
Well, yes and no. You need to phase it. But then those phases can't be very far apart, because once you may have planned or designed for something to act in unison when it is completed. That's when the real impact is going to be felt.
Yes.
But if people begin to feel a partial impact, in certain cases it may be negative.
Okay.
That you do something partially, finish 15%, open it up.
Yeah.
Guys are going to walk in and say, it was a whole lot easier 2 years ago when these guys didn't mess with this. So it's a difficult game, and I think once in a lifetime or once in several lifetimes is a good number. And so we are not late. We are okay. Our railways are about 150 years old. Our independence is 70 some years old, and I think if we are now in a massive stage of redevelopment, we're fine.
And I suppose because there are so many contractors coming in and out, and I think design changes as well with time. So I think those, if you do it in stages, it's always a problem there to bring everything together.
Right, and I think that is, you've touched on a very interesting thing. I term it as ecosystem. We are also in a nascent ecosystem of actually being able to handle projects of this nature.
Okay.
One of the interesting things is that you need to build over the tracks while trains pass.
Yes.
And unlike bridges, railway station human structures are relatively lighter. I mean, they're heavy structures, but they're not as heavy as bridges.
Yeah.
Simply to pick up the pieces and put them on top of the train, of the train tracks, the size and capacity of tower cranes was not available when Chandigarh started. So ACIL actually imported the correct capacity of cranes at that time for the first time in the country.
Okay.
So you may think कि इसमें बड़ी बात क्या है? 80 मीटर अगर आपको let's say 5 टन उठा के बीम रख, so what? It's a big deal. The equipment doesn't exist. The equipment doesn't exist. The certification doesn't exist. The operator does not exist, and you have to create that ecosystem to be able to get there. So we are also in the nascent stages of that.
Interesting.
And what is termed as it takes forever, etc. If one was to dive a little deeper and understand what the guys who are on the planning side of things or on the construction side of things, what they're dealing with there is incredible. It is absolutely incredible. The size of the challenge is, you need to spend a few months in it to understand कि है क्या.
I can imagine. Going on step 1, how do architecture firms basically land such projects? Is it through expression of interest? Is it through tenders? Is it through competitions? What's the goal?
All of them.
Okay.
So there are competitions that are held for the important stations. and then there is a jury that decides what is the best fit design for a particular station. So people have won stations by competition.
Okay.
I believe Chennai Central is by competition. Several others are by competition. There are then design tenders as well, where an organization, let's say like the RLDA or the railways, might invite a limited or an open competition. Usually limited competition होते हैं because there are again administrative issues to it. And then there are absolutely lucky guys like me who would land one by expression of interest. So we were talking to the right person or the right people broadly at the right time when they were getting into it. They found us a reasonable fit, and since it was a private company who could take decisions quickly, we did land the job. How well we did remains to be seen. We'll know next year when Chandigarh is finally done. But yeah, I mean, it can be all of these ways. If I may be bold enough to express an opinion, I do believe that from an architectural merit standpoint, the path of competitions remains the best.
Okay.
And I have no hesitation to admit that from the ones that we've done, we will never know if ANA was the best bet to do that station or could somebody else have done better. I have no hesitation to say that probably somebody else could have done better. And therefore competitions, I do believe, would be the way to the best design outcomes.
So what's the criteria for selection when the jury, they're selecting out of the competition? What are the few key things that they look at?
So first of all, I think it is the composition of the jury itself.
Okay.
I think it needs to be a very judicious mix of railway guys who actually own and run the railways, planners, and architects.
Okay.
And when I say planners, railway stations have a very active perimeter. It is a transit point between type A transport, which is train, into everything else. It could be bus, tram, car, rickshaw, walking, whatever. So planners need to definitely be involved in how the perimeter would behave when this is done. And then of course architects, because one of the joys of this infrastructure, trains, and the time it started in India, is that railway stations willy-nilly now find themselves in the center of cities. They started out being outside of the cities or terminus stations. Not all of them, some of them. Like South Bombay was a terminus station, but several others may be wayside. They probably had population on one side of the tracks. Today they have it on both sides. We are doing Dimapur, and Dimapur didn't even have a station. It then got a station for meter gauge, and then there was a bund that was built, and the city was on one side, and now the city is on both sides. So they have very active perimeters, and then there is also the language of architecture that the station needs to speak.
Okay.
Most of these city centers are fairly intimate. And while, for example, Bombay, South Bombay is grandiose. There's this beautiful architecture and urban design. It's still intimate.
Okay.
The station structure that it needs to be now with the population that we're building for is going to be gargantuan. It is going to be massive. The through roof, the system that covers all of the platforms and the concourses is about 5 acres.
Okay.
So I'm not talking in terms of square meters. I'm saying it is about 5 acres.
Yeah.
And putting that kind of a visible structure in that intimate space and making it go away and yet celebrating it needs a lot of sensitive engineering and design. So the jury selection needs to be this. It needs to be railway guys who know what railways is about. Transport planners and urban designers and architects need to be on the jury. And then we're going to have a judicious mix of both things. There needs to be people who understand how to deliver complex projects. So these are companies or people or associations of people who've been in existence and in the profession for some time. They should have made their mistakes. They should have cut their teeth. They should know what it feels like to deliver, and therefore not take foolhardy decisions on design. And then there needs to be this young cutting edge blood which says, you know what, why can't it be done this way? Things that I haven't even thought of. There are young practices which are already executing at a smaller scale, and they can be scaled up. Why not? So I think it needs to be probably a competition with a mix of these. I mean, if I had sort of my way on how I would write this competition brief, I would concentrate on the jury first.
Okay.
And then I would say that this needs to be mandatorily a well-established architecture engineering practice who has a co-designer who has less than 10 years field experience.
Interesting.
And that would be my ideal sort of design mix for a building like this.
Interesting point you said. Less than 10 years.
Less than 10 years.
Why?
Because the way the generation that is less than 10 years out into the field, they haven't made their mistakes.
Yeah.
Their nose has not been bloodied yet.
Yeah.
They're idealistic.
Yeah.
They've read books and seen movies and gone to places I haven't.
Yeah.
Their thought is enhanced by what the cyber world can do. Mine is not.
Yeah.
And I think what they can bring on the table is far more than what I will ever. When I say I'm not trying to be presumptuous. I mean people my generation and above. I don't think that we have it in us.
Okay.
I mean, the way a young guy looks at parametrics, for example, I struggled over many, many months to understand the fundamental concept of what it was. And I have never been able to actually. So I can make certain things intuitively. My office has done some intuitive stuff. But have we designed our system to build parametrics into our work? No. Lack of understanding, fear, jadedness, tiredness, old age, all of that. So I think it needs to be a combination of very solid practices who know how to deliver and a young guy who's
able to do it.
Yeah.
Oh, fantastic. Because I mean, people would say that there's too much at stake. So you need someone who is experienced enough and not naive, because 10 years is not a lot of experience in the grand scheme of things.
No, it's not. And thank God for that. And let me draw a corollary from, I think sometimes we take things a little too seriously.
Okay.
Is it that my generation or the generation previous did not make mistakes? We have, by the spades. Our cities look like the way they do because we designed them.
Yeah.
And I don't think India boasts of any world-class cities so far. So number one, to say that mistakes are the prerogative of a person who's been around for less than 10 years is presumptuous, to say the least.
Fair.
They will make their mistakes, we've already made them. And that's why I'm saying that it's a collaboration. There needs to be people who know how to deliver large projects, handle relationships. Just the fact that there are going to be 50 stakeholders, each with a valid point of view that you need to carry along, requires years and years of experience. White hair, no hair, take your pick. But I think that idealism and that enthusiasm that comes from young people, that's the future of the country, that's the future of the world. I cannot be the custodian of the future of the world.
So you said Chandigarh station has about 35,000 footfall daily.
Every day.
There are bigger cities in India
Yes.
who have a higher footfall.
Yes.
There have also been aviation, as you said, has, a lot of people are taking flights instead of taking trains. But train still seems to be a very heavy mode of transport in India.
Everywhere.
But I mean, in terms of the volume, if you talk about, the leading populous countries, China and India, what do we need to take into consideration when you're designing for chaos and for busyness for a country like India?
Dekho, chaos is a function of poor design.
Okay.
Right? People don't get out of their house every morning with the decision to create havoc on the streets or anywhere. Nobody does that.
No.
कोई घर से ये सोच के नहीं निकलता आज ना ट्रैफिक जैम करूंगा. It doesn't work like that. So poor design causes chaos. People don't cause chaos. Populations don't cause chaos. There are several cities in the world that have more cars than NCR does. But those cities don't have the kind of madcap traffic we do.
Yes.
It all boils down to how they're planned and designed. Why trains? Is there any place in India that you can think of where business happens at the perimeter of the city? Anywhere. Business will always happen at the center of the city where people are.
Yeah.
The second question is, in the center of this busyness and this economy and this boom and this energy of millions of people, can you think of a single building, a single city, in the middle of which you can put a runway?
नहीं हो सकता.
नहीं हो सकता. The largest passenger aircraft that is in the skies today is the Airbus 380. In an all economy configuration, it roughly carries 600 people. ठीक है?
Yeah.
A 24 coach train typically carries 1500 to 1800 people,
Yes.
right? And they bring it to the city center.
Yeah.
So you look at the big airport developments that are happening around the country, and they are needed. I'm not for a moment against aviation. But you look at what it entails.
Okay.
Navi Mumbai entailed the building of an entire coastal bridge and tunnel network to be able to work. If Navi Mumbai station had opened without the Atal Setu system in place, you wouldn't be able to get in and out. Jewar in NCR has been chosen because you can get in and out of there. But both these places are roughly 40 to 60 kilometers or 100 kilometers away from the city center. So for example, I live in NCR, my office is in the south of Delhi, or for you in Gurgaon, and you need to catch a 7 a.m. from Jewar, what are you going to do? Your night is finished, right?
Yeah.
Either you go and stay there or you start at 2 in the morning. But if you needed to catch a 7 a.m. train, it's not such a big deal, right?
No.
Okay, you get out of the house at 6, you catch your train at 7. So there is no argument that will ever put a validity to the point that aviation should supersede trains. Trains will always be it. We did a lot of research at ANA when we got the Chandigarh station. I think we've got stacks and stacks of work, some of it pretty seminal on how railway stations came about in the world. And this is an immediately post-COVID development, us coming on to the Chandigarh station. In Europe, there is a declining trend towards air travel and an ascendant towards train travel post-COVID. It's got to do with everything. How people choose to spend their time. A few years ago, and at the beginning of my career also, I used to save my boarding passes because it was a chip on my shoulder. You know, I'm flying so much.
Yeah.
It's like you've arrived, you
Yeah.
take flight, etc. In Europe, it's turned around that, you know, you're an idiot if you're causing so many trees to be felled to fly from one place to another. And then secondly, it's the sheer convenience of it. That, you know, the kind of security that is required for aviation versus the kind of security that is required for railway is very different.
Yeah.
They are in the city center. You park your car like literally 50 meters away from the train
And
that you're
walk
supposed to
down,
be, and walk down.
Yeah.
And you know, you go through one little security check and you're through. In airport, you have to go there, either check in online, get a boarding pass, check your luggage in, go through security, walk to the gates, etc. You need a minimum in a metro city 1 hour, 1.5 hours to do it. You know, against 20 minutes on the train. You are seldom living far away from the city center, you know, okay, 20 kilometers maybe, but you are 60 kilometers from an airport. So all of the multiple, and then you do it again when you land. आपको मुंबई में अंधेरी में मीटिंग है, लैंड किया आपने नवी मुंबई. You do the math whether you can have a 10 a.m. meeting or not. But if you take a train, let's say Rajdhani, and you get off at Borivali at 8 in the morning, you can do a 10 a.m. in wherever, suburbs. So the convenience of trains will never go away. There is already existing infrastructure which can be upgraded and used. So trains, I think, are really the future of the world. And you look at China, for example. I mean, it's a very good example for us also, that they are developing both networks. We talk about their high-speed network, but it's not that only high-speed is being developed. Regional trains and local trains are also being developed at the same pace. So I think it's a mix of rail, light rail, buses, etc. that will work.
सबसे बड़ा चैलेंज कहाँ आता है जब आप रेलवे स्टेशन डिजाइन कर रहे होते हो?
Oh, you could write a separate book on challenges. I don't think there is a सबसे बड़ा challenge. There are challenges around information and knowledge. Like we didn't understand how trains and standards of trains work when we got into the station. So there is an organization called the RDSO.
Okay.
This is the Railway Development and Standards Organization. These are the guys who write the standards for rail to run in India. And you need to be intimately aware of how they think and what those standards are. And if you miss those standards by a few millimeters, you're in serious trouble. So one, the people who are dealing with the design need to understand these standards in addition to NBC and whatever else you may be using. The second is the number of stakeholders, and everybody is right. So very often these stakeholders are insular.
Okay.
that a person responsible, let's say, for the traffic safety of trains is insular to the person who's responsible for revenue, is insular to the person who's an architect who's responsible for the language, could be insular to another person who says that the signages on the platform are a source of revenue for me. I want to run Colgate toothpaste ke ad over there, etc. So there are disparate stakeholders, and one needs to have the patience and the ability to stitch this narrative together and to be able to negotiate your way on, okay, I'll give you this, but I need this from you, kind of
And
a thing.
achieving the same shared vision.
Yeah. So airports by that nature are spectacular usually because the number of stakeholders are very less.
Okay.
On the land side, there is really no interface with the air side.
No.
And the air side, so long as you're working at the perimeter of the aircraft and not
Yeah.
doing anything unsafe, you're fine. You
Yeah.
can pretty much do everything else. In a railway station, those silos are strong and intertwined. So you
Okay.
need to know that. Then let us come specifically to India. We have our ecosystem of how large projects get built and delivered is still developing. I think there is serious intent where it is coming from the top of doing quote unquote world class stuff. But if you have a little chat with the person who's in the know of things and ask him, sir, world class kya hota hai? You'll be very lucky to get a coherent answer, because world class क्या होता है ये सबका definition अलग है. People look at it in different ways, and they also look at it from what they've seen and experienced,
Okay.
which may or may not be very much. There are some people who are avid readers, would have experienced more, maybe traveled more. There's somebody else who's not an avid reader, goes by what has been told to him, spent his career being whatever he was tasked to do.
Yeah.
And for him, that's the universe.
That's the box.
That's the box.
Yeah.
And he's right. I mean, he's not wrong. I don't think anybody in the system sits there and says, I'm going to scuttle this effort.
Yeah.
But in certain cases, things become challenging because of a lack of information and knowledge. Then there is the political desire versus the reality of what can happen. And I think that's largely to do with timelines. The kind of timelines that most of these EPCs and contractors are up against, from the get-go, if you ask them privately, they know that they are unachievable.
So cut to cut.
No, it's not even cut to cut. It is impossible.
Okay.
I'll give you an example
Right.
of the tenders that I have seen, and I'm not speaking from everything else. There is an expectation enshrined in the tender that from the date of award of the EPC contract, construction on site would start roughly between 30 and 45 days. Now, to expect that a bunch of people will come in, understand the brief, understand the design, detail it out, design the structure, get it approved, and get onto the site on day 45, day 60, even day 90, in my view, is impossible. I mean, I think and in that sense, we had a very cooperative EPC. I mean, they bled money initially because we were taking our own sweet time doing things. They took a lot of flack till the time the results began to show, and then sort of calmed down.
Okay.
But I think that if one was to put a research planning design phase first, which is of a reasonable time and carries a reasonable amount of incentive for people to be involved in it, our challenges on site would be far lesser. So that is definitely a challenge, that is an elephant in the room and needs to be addressed. It's being currently addressed because it is there. So you work against, for example, 5 letters coming to you from an agency saying you're delayed, etc., while you keep pushing, doing whatever you're doing, and then you achieve something at the end of 6 months or 8 months or 9 months. And so when we turn around and say, oh, all projects are delayed, they're not. No project is delayed. They're on the right time. They are on the time that they can be built in. We had an aspiration that was probably incorrect, and we need to correct ourselves. And I also think that there needs to be a lot more education around the conceptualization of projects, the leadership of design thought transferred to the leadership of construction, and the interfacing. That interfacing currently is not there. There are brilliant people around everywhere. Okay, so it's not an individual problem. It's not that you don't have brilliant architects or brilliant planners or brilliant construction managers or brilliant contractors. The interfacing scheme is not there. And I'll take the example, for example, you look at the UK, which runs on a REBA system.
Okay.
Now, the REBA system in great depth and detail identifies and puts a boundary around everybody's role and has a very clear definition of interface. You lead from here to here, you deliver these things which need to be checked and approved by the next guy, and then he leads and your job is done, or you come in a subsidiary. So the roles keep changing. I may be a lead at a design stage, but I am a sub at the construction stage, etc. Those definitions don't exist in India. So what happens is that whoever is the person in charge as a project manager, either from the government side or the project management teams that are put in place, they define what they want to do.
Okay.
And very often it is driven by their experience and their personality, which may or may not match, which is also changeable. That I walk into a project in January with a certain mindset, go through 3 months of the grind, and my mindset changes in April. But I have placed a diktat in January already based on whatever knowledge I had at that time. I think that is a massive challenge. And until and unless we write these systems down properly, similar to, like I said, the REBA, I think the Council of Architecture could really help in that. The ITPO could really help in that. There are several organizations which have the wherewithal to do it. And I believe that they need to do it. They need to lobby the government. And this needs to be defined as a process and everybody needs to follow it. If you don't have a driving system in place in the country, you build a highway and say, okay, now we've got a highway, drive whichever way you want, you're getting nowhere.
Yeah.
And that's some of what is happening in these mega projects. And I'm speaking again from very close association. And in no way trying to negate people's efforts. Everybody who I have met is passionate about outcome. Every single person, even if for some reason they were creating a bottleneck. They were doing it with the right-minded attitude of, I want things to move forward. It's just that it is so disparate and the system is not there that it very often entangles itself in a noodle, and then you need to sort of navigate your way through.
So, हमने बात करी forecasting की कि कैसे you're taking numbers, you're getting numbers for not just for current footfall but also for future. How do you design your design flow? How do you take future numbers into account, और कितने future numbers को आप account में लेते हो? 5 साल, 10 साल, 50 साल?
Typically रेलवे में अभी जो मेरा experience रहा है, it is about 70 years.
अच्छा, so crowd flow 70 साल,
so 50 से 70 साल का होता है.
ठीक है.
In certain cases it is a projection up to 2060 in certain cases. So we must understand, Atharva, that there will be a time very shortly when our population goes into a declining mode.
Yes.
We're not going to be increasing the number of people forever.
Yeah.
But the people who are going to be born between now and 15-20 years are going to come into the workforce and traveling public sometime after, and then the decline will happen from the back and then catch up, etc. So these are fairly standardized practices of how to forecast. So 50 to 70 years is a very common number. Okay. From a structural integrity standpoint, typically 100 years is taken. And again, that is something that's been done forever. I mean, there are several bridges in the country that are more than 100 years old, still serviceable, still working. So that is also a good practice. When you invest public money, and these are large sums, you're not talking about pittances.
Yeah.
Large sums of money, I think 100-year structural stability is good. There are several things that cannot be guaranteed for 100 years. IT, for example.
Yes.
IT will change completely in the next 5 years, next 10 years. I mean, when we started out learning about IT and networks, everything was Cat 5, then it became Cat 6, then it became Cat 6e. Now nobody even talks about wires. So, so that will change, and therefore to say that I want IT infra which is robust for 50 years or even 20 years is not really a great idea.
It's going to get redundant very...
But then you design for flexibility.
Okay,
if things change, this is what you do. Yeah. Then there is the design for interface. You need to understand what's going to happen on the railway station.
Yeah.
You need to also understand what is happening around the railway station. When you put this huge infrastructure in place and let people have a good time around it, then things are going to happen on the perimeter that will change.
Yes.
So, there may be more residential now, but will be less residential and become more commercial or more entertainment or more mixed use as you go along. So that understanding is very important. and you interface for that.
Mm-hmm.
And then you need to understand the judicious use of space.
Okay.
Sometimes what happens is that the first principles go-to answer is chauda bana do, bada bana do, lamba bana do, ucha bana do. Not always the best idea.
Okay.
And again, there are failures that you will see in and around our infra, where, for example, again, these are not, I'm not nitpicking, I'm not trying to find fault with somebody's work, but there are these massive entrances to railway stations that have been done in small cities because development.
Yeah.
So you have a 4-lane going into the railway station from a 2-lane road.
Okay.
What do you think it's going to do?
Yeah.
The rickshaw wallas and the auto wallas find a very convenient parking space and they create bottleneck.
Yeah.
So I think that judiciousness comes from what I said, having made your mistakes and having your nose bloodied. You know that this big is nice enough, but any bigger will create chaos. So you need to plan for it, but you need to have it phased or create situations where spaces will also change over time as population increases and you need more and more, etc. So it's a whole lot of lot of algorithmic work.
Yeah.
It's a whole lot of intuitive work. It's a whole lot of iterations, and it's a whole lot of discussion. I mean, I think I've been richer for showing our design and discussing our design with as many number of people as possible. So whether they are architects within the government system, peers, people in the planning system, engineers, planners, I have a whole lot more respect for transport planners and urban planners now than I did 4 years ago.
Yeah.
I used to think there were guys who used to write a lot of numbers, but the kind of insights that they can come in and say, okay, this one is okay, you can do this. This one don't go because this is what is going to happen. I think it's brilliant, and I think again, it eventually comes back to co-creation, interface, lots of people, having an open mind, not losing your way. I mean, Mahatma Gandhi's quote about, I'd love to live in a house where all the windows are open and winds from all directions come in, but I refuse to be blown off by any one of them. I think an architect's journey also is kind of similar, that you allow these ideas to come in, assimilate, but don't lose your course.
I would love to be a fly on the wall when these discussions are happening, because as an architect, if you're saying that there are new things to learn, when in different perspectives that you can take out of, I mean, for a person who's not from that industry and also someone to a normal citizen as well, to hear what the planning is and what thought that goes into those interfaces would be truly remarkable.
I think it's also very important. I'm reminded of something that a very dear friend of mine told me. She practices in Sydney. She's an architect and she specializes in transport. We had got her in as an advisor to us on the Mumbai project. And also she did some work on the Chandigarh signage as well. She told me that in Sydney, when they design for differently abled, especially for the visually impaired, the test of the design is that they take a person who can see, not associated with the design team, blindfold him or her, and ask him to find his way around the station. If he can find his way, you've succeeded. If he can't, you've failed. So this is a person who's not a designer, not an architect, not associated with the design, not blind. And he is the guy who decides, when I say he's the guy who decides, his experience on that station decides whether the station design is a success or not from the standpoint of the visually impaired. I think that's brilliant. And similarly, why not? Why not a person who is a train user coming back and saying, this is what I need from my station? Because if that voice is not heard, then you've already failed. Because how much of a knowledge can I as a non-frequent train user have in comparison with the person who uses a train every month or every week?
True.
And I think so it's not a fly on the wall. I think you need to be a front and center piece of the action. Not from a decision-making perspective probably, but from a defining the agenda. I think that's even more important than what comes out of it.
So we briefly touched on the bottlenecks. How do you take bottlenecks into consideration? So
with great frustration.
But I mean, entrances, as you said, ticketing, you've got platforms. How is this managed?
These are not bottlenecks. These are not bottlenecks at all. These are processes. This is how you travel in a train. You get off a particular vehicle. find your way to a ticket vending machine or a queue,
Yeah.
buy a ticket, go through security, and then get onto the train. So these are not bottlenecks. This
Yeah.
is a process.
Okay.
The bottleneck is disparate briefs, lack of space, certain cases and identification that what may have been proposed in an initial DPR design is actually not working with the numbers we have. So for example, Dimapur station, there is a DPR, it's a well-made DPR, but it had certain numbers of projection for interface traffic. When we got our transport planner on board, and he's a great guy, Dr. Sandeep Gandhi is, I mean, I respect the guy a lot. He spent days and nights at the station and did counts and all of that himself, and he came back saying that the numbers need to be tweaked.
Okay.
There is a difference in the way people use the station than what one would like to believe in a DPR. Now, changing a DPR in a government system is a big deal. So while there is a cause, you need to have the patience and the dedication and the, I don't know, bullheadedness to say, okay, I'm going to take this one and I'm going to fight over it for the next 3 months and get it done. Those bottlenecks probably from an attitude standpoint need to change. I think we're a nation very afraid of making mistakes.
Okay.
While we continue to make them. So every nation makes mistakes. I mean, one nation threw two nukes on another nation.
Yeah.
We didn't ban them from the rest of the world, right? We didn't say US से कोई बात नहीं करेगा, ये न्यूक्लियर बॉम्ब डालते हैं. So अब जब उतनी मिस्टेक करके आप आगे आ सकते हो तो ये छोटी मोटी मिस्टेक्स तो होंगी. But I think we are a nation, as I said, very afraid of making mistakes, and I think we need to learn that it's okay. Don't repeat mistakes. That's more important. You can make a mistake.
Yeah.
We are human beings, and then we have enough muscle to correct those mistakes. But if we don't acknowledge कि हम गलती कर रहे हैं,
Denial is probably worse.
then we just repeat the same thing over and over again.
Yes.
So I think the bottleneck probably is here more than anywhere else physically.
Okay.
And I think that's something that needs to be probably looked at.
You touched on aspirations briefly. I'm sure you interview a lot of stakeholders when you're designing this. What are a few aspirations of a daily user of a railway station?
So very interesting question, and I don't think that I'm an expert at answering, but I will answer truthfully to the extent that I have understood.
Okay.
And I do not claim to be understanding everything.
Okay.
We are an incredibly aspirational country. And what drives us is the largest, the highest, the tallest, the biggest, the most badass. That's what we want. And it's years and years of suppressed emotion. Like, this is our century,
Yeah.
this is our moment, we can
Yeah.
do it kind of a thing. And one needs to understand that the tallest, most badass may not be what you need in certain cases. So I think that understanding of that aspiration and then trying to deliver. And the other thing is the aspect of leapfrogging. The reality of the current machinery is that it can at best be incremental in progress. But the need is to leapfrog. And on certain aspects say, this far, no further, here we change. That's a really difficult one, because then one gets into economic systems and infrastructure and how long it would take for an industrial infrastructure to take root. And that industrial infrastructure to spawn products that can be used. So a common refrain that I have heard when we make design presentations, and ANA's work is characterized by low-key work. We are not a flamboyant architect. So we work on very functional, very reasonable things. I mean, I love it. I love the work that we do, but that's the only one I'm familiar with. So we've had instances where people say, "Isme na yaar, a very common Indian colloquial, maza nahi aa raha." Like, this is not flamboyant enough, or this is not gigantic enough, or it doesn't make that one fell sweeping statement. And to make that one fell sweeping statement, the stuff that is required at the back end may or may not necessarily be present. And you will see it in a lot of projects that get finished in the next couple of years, that the ones with the most flamboyant statement may or may not come out the best. I wish them luck, I wish they do. I wish I am wrong. I hope that I'm proven wrong in the next few years. But I do believe that there is a lack of industry to support like for example, if you look at Rotterdam Station.
Okay.
Rotterdam has this huge cantilever entrance. I don't remember the number, but it must be at least 50, 60 meters long.
Okay.
Unsupported, massive cantilever. You can see it from miles away. And that's the signature of that station. Inside is pretty simple. But just to get a design for a 50-meter cantilever on the EPC tender minimum bid pricing that I have, the kind of steel that is manufactured in India and is easily available, the kind of skill that can actually detail out and fabricate it, you require maybe just to build that entrance on a single project with a single EPC, number one, a revision of price. Forget it, that is going to get done at the lowest price, won't happen. And it's not the guy who bid, it's not his fault. I mean, that's the contract that's the card he's been dealt with, right? So to expect that suddenly he's going to turn around and say, chal, koi baat nahi, project to 400 crore ka tha, 600 kharch karte hain, it's not going to happen. So that is the first bottleneck. And then, okay, all right, somewhere you find the money, you realize ke steel hi nahi milta. And then your structural engineering team may not have the wherewithal to do the junctions, and even if you do the junctions, then you find that there aren't enough trained welders and supervisors in the field to actually do it. So privately, a lot of structural engineers would tell you that I'm not afraid of designing what Zahadi did, or the Antwerp office in Belgium, the port office. Yeah. I can design it, but I don't want that to be the last project of my life, because somebody down the line is going to create havoc with a bad piece of welding. It's going to fail, and then everything else is going to fail because of that. So I don't want to take the risk. I want to do the cheap and cheerful pre-done way. So again, as I said, the challenges are here. But they are real. They're very, very real. And we need to acknowledge them, and we need to start working towards them. And it's going to take us a few years to develop that infra and that ability. The second thing that I get told a lot as an architect, China में तो 40 दिन में building बना दी multi-story. नहीं sir, China ने 40 दिन में multi-story building नहीं बनाई. उन्होंने पहले 15 साल infrastructure बनाया. इस building की design करी 15 महीने, pre-fabrication करा 8 महीने, फिर 40 दिन में erection करा. So what you're seeing is
only the tip of the
iceberg. The tip of the iceberg. Yeah. You're not seeing the infra behind it. Can we do it? Yes. Yes, of course we can do it. But, give 12 months to design, 8 months to fabrication, and then do your 40 days of erection. यहाँ पे होता है site पे कुछ नहीं हो रहा. I mean, even today, Atharva, you sit for project management meetings on large projects. One of the key questions being asked is कि site पे manpower कितनी है? As if manpower is the end all and be all of a large project. It's not. Mechanization is. Automation is, prefabrication is, you may require less than a tenth of skilled people on site, but all of these other guys working in a factory at the back end somewhere producing the pieces that fit to go and get done on the site. But वो major shift है और वो चाहिए.
Because construction is, or probably labor is very synonymous to construction, right? So they only think along those lines. They don't think how machinery can actually.
They do, but I don't think there's enough sort of pause available.
Okay.
You become extremely unpopular in a meeting when you say that somebody at a project management level is saying, I want these drawings to be finished in 15 days, and you say, I am so sorry, my capacity is 2 months and nothing less.
Yeah.
And then a negotiation starts. हमने तो पहले भी करा है, etc., etc., etc. But and beyond the point, there is that much that you can push, and you can't beyond that. And I think we are not addressing it. We are not addressing our paucity of back-end ecosystem to be able to create this. And I think the outward manifestation of having made beautiful airport structures, or a lovely business destination, or a great skyscraper one-off, is not a representative of India's ability or need. We need all 10,000 stations to be world-class, small and big, and they all don't need to be flamboyant. All stations in the world are not flamboyant. We need all roads, including the road in front of your house, to be world-class.
Yeah.
We need our plantation schemes to be world-class. We need our systems to be world-class. We need to go back to school and relearn. We need to decide that skills in the next 5 years are going to be required here, here, and here, and that's what we design our curriculums for, etc. That's the task that is there, and that is really cut out for us.
And design is in simplicity and functionality, I suppose.
Well, there is design in flamboyance. There is, I mean, Zaha Hadid had her place in the world.
Yes.
God rest her soul. There are other people who are doing it, and like I said, we are a country that wants flamboyance. What has survived in our history over the last 2,000 years is the flamboyant stuff.
Yes.
I mean, you've got the rock cut temples of Ajanta and Ellora. You can't get any more flamboyant than that, to go into a basalt rock and say, you know what, I'm going to carve you into the most beautiful temple without doing any masonry.
Yeah.
आप कहाँ से लाओगे वो flamboyance? But did we do it on a minimum bid in 18 months? No. Or cut to Taj Mahal, cut to New Delhi, whatever it is, you name it. We are a nation's, and I'm making a very large statement, and I again don't mean it in a political way. We are starved of that sense of achievement, because we know we can do it. इसीलिए हम इतने खुश होते हैं जब हम कहते हैं, oh, Sundar Pichai is from India. Yes, he is. And there are probably 10,000 more guys who are as brilliant or more in India. We need to get to that point where we say, okay, this collective energy of 140 million people will be channeled towards something constructive, and we will do the flamboyant stuff. But before, you can't start with the flamboyant. So you can't go ass backwards in this. You need to get your stuff at the back end sorted, and then you go do the flamboyant stuff. And yeah, I mean, the visual success is always, I mean, I remember your introduction of me today, 56 cities, etc. Yes, but it didn't happen in a day. I have a 30-year journey. And thank God for that. But that's what we need to also do in our projects.
You've done a lot of MAP projects as well. So I'm sure it would be really fun for you when you're doing the MAP and services such as power, drainage in railway stations. What do you take into account there?
So yeah, MAP is a passion as much as it is for architecture for me. I'm not the expert. There is an entire bunch of people in the office who head that division and run it. But when again it comes to railway stations, you look at comfort inside, and the mandate globally is to reduce energy in the operating costs of buildings.
Okay.
So you try and look at bioclimatic stuff, you try and look at natural ventilation, you try and look at architectural elements in a way where they also act. So if you look at the most beautiful examples of architecture in the world, they come out of two needs. One is to span between 2 points.
Okay.
And the other is to function as something.
Yes.
And the spanning bit we've learned very well. The functioning bit we've kind of lost somewhere, and it needs to be revived. So India is a signatory to COP29, COP30. We are committed to the environment. Thank God for that. Look at the air outside, etc. But I think when as an architect, I am also part of a team that is designing the MEP. We try and marry the functioning of the MEP with the functioning of the building. So, roofs that are going to cover the station, for example, runs into acres. Now, that part of the city did not have this big through roof earlier. Therefore, the rain was falling on the tracks. There was a certain degree of attenuation of the flow of rainwater. So it would reach the drains maybe 20 minutes after it landed, etc. Now we go and put a shiny new roof on it, and the runoff is increased by 2 times. There is climate change, peak rainfalls have changed, the data of the last 50 years has been surpassed, the last 80 years has been surpassed, the last 3 years have thrown up challenges we never thought would happen, etc. So one needs to carefully look at all of those things which are changing and also brace for the worst. I don't think climate change is going to stop next year. Whatever we have done in the past, and we are now beginning to make amends, will also take some time to kick in. So it's going to just get worse and worse for a few years, and then hopefully if we don't go beyond the tipping point, then we're going to start coming back. But in that time, trains are not going to stop. So one takes that into account. Then one takes technology that is available outside of the country that may have been applied in smaller projects. Can it be scaled up? Can we look at natural ventilation? Can we look at radiant cooling? Can we look at daylighting? Can we look at daylight tubes? Can we look at so many other things? And then what better can you do beyond the brief? So if there is a particular power which is already allocated to a station, can you run it equally well with choosing better equipment and using lesser power? So I think rainwater is a big one. Rainwater has caused more havoc in this country than any other kind of natural disaster, and I believe largely for preventable reasons.
Yes.
Electrical consumption, yes, we are power surplus as a nation, and we are also generating renewables a lot more now, but just because we have it, should we use it up and not leave it for the next generation? Not a good idea. I think air conditioning is a big passion part of my psyche. I think it's required. I think we've taken human comfort far too lightly. We are a tropical country, and everything and every place and every region in the country cannot be made comfortable naturally with the kind of concentration of people.
Yes.
So, I mean, for example, in Mumbai, you can feel reasonably comfortable standing under a tree in summer if you're standing there alone and there is breathing space around you.
Yeah.
But if you're sharing a steel concourse with 10,000 other people or 15,000, you can't feel comfortable naturally. It has to be air conditioned.
Yes.
But how do you do it? Are you going to use the same old-fashioned way of doing it, etc.? So there are ways. And then the building envelope itself, how insulation is not a topic spoken of adequately in our country. Whether it's a small house or a large project, somehow that layer of insulation and moisture proofing has been missed. So, for ages I used to think when I was young that, a 230 mm brick wall is good enough.
Okay.
Because that's how houses are made everywhere. I'm talking about when I was in grade 12, 13, like 12, first year, etc. It's only much later that I realized that it's a thermal mass in North India and especially in the tropics. And it actually, it's a phenomenon which we've all seen, that you walk into your house at the end of a day in summer, it's worse inside than it's outside.
Yes.
It's happening because the building skin is not properly. So when we have a company like ANA where the MEP and the architecture is part of the same team, you get that opportunity of implementing complementary ideas in architecture and in MEP design. So I think the big ones are going to be stormwater and air conditioning.
Okay.
These are the big ones. And of course then everything else in between.
Yeah.
So, including the waste that we generate, the bio waste, how you can use it, how not to throw it away. It's also energy.
Yeah.
It's also nutrients. It's also, it is a bioresource. So all of those things I think are big ones that need to be looked at.
साफ सफाई एक बहुत बड़ा चैलेंज है रेलवे स्टेशंस पे इंडिया में. इसको कैसे ठीक करा जा सकता है?
थोड़ा सा करेक्शन, साफ सफाई सिर्फ रेलवे स्टेशन में प्रॉब्लम नहीं है. ये साफ सफाई काफ़ी जगहों पे प्रॉब्लम है.
यस.
चंद साल पहले एक बहुत ही अच्छी स्कीम लॉन्च हुई थी गवर्नमेंट की, स्वच्छ भारत के नाम से. मेरे ख्याल में अगर मैं पॉपुलर पब्लिक इंटरफेस के पॉइंट ऑफ व्यू से देखूं तो यूपीआई के बाद सबसे अच्छी चीज़ वही थी, क्योंकि उसके अंदर हम सब इन्वॉल्व थे. जो उसका कम्युनिकेशन था वो यही था कि हमारे घर, हमारे दफ्तर, हमारे मंदिर. सो एक तो साइकी है और साइकी से ज़्यादा डिज़ाइन डिटेलिंग है. और मैं एक कोरोलरी ड्रॉ करूँगा किसी और सिस्टम से. जब हम होटल डिज़ाइन करते हैं, फॉर एग्जांपल एक 5 स्टार होटल, मतलब आपको जो सबसे अच्छे वेल मेंटेन्ड ह्यूमन मेड प्रॉपर्टीज़ दुनिया में मिलेंगे वो होटल्स ही हैं. वो इतने अच्छे इसलिए होते हैं कि जिस वक्त आप डिज़ाइन करना शुरू कर रहे होते हो, आपका जो ब्रीफ करने वाला एजेंट होता है वो होता है जिसको वो फैसिलिटी मैनेज करनी है.
Yes.
और वो आपको बताएगा कि मेरे को साबुन रखने के लिए इतनी जगह चाहिए, मेरे को इतनी तौलियाँ चाहिए, मेरे को इतने कार्ट्स चाहिए, इतने लोग होंगे, ये कोना आप ऐसे नहीं बना सकते, ये वाले को सीधा करो, यहाँ पे डिफ़िकल्ट टू रीच है, यहाँ पे सफाई नहीं हो पाएगी, एक्सेट्रा. तो वो सेंसिटाइजेशन आपका होता है जब आप पहली लाइन खींच रहे होते हो. सो ऑल द नाइस स्टफ दैट यू सी एंड द एयर कंडीशनिंग स्मेलिंग ग्रेट हैपन्स बिकॉज किसी ने आपको वो ब्रीफ पहले दिया हुआ और वो आपका पार्ट है इसका. रेलवे स्टेशन या किसी भी पब्लिक इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर में जो उसका मेंटेनेंस है वो बाद में आता है.
Okay.
आपने डिज़ाइन कर दिया, आपने स्ट्रक्चर बिल्ड कर दिया, आपका आधा स्ट्रक्चर बिल्ड किया, अब कोई टेंडर निकलेगा कि भैया इसकी मेंटेनेंस करनी है. तो जो उस शख्स को पहली बारी बना रहे हो स्टेशन, आप इतने बड़े कॉन्कोर्सेज आप पहली बारी बना रहे हो, ऐसा तो है नहीं कि 50 बने हुए हैं और आपने उनसे कुछ सीख लिया है. तो अब जो आदमी आया उसको मेंटेन करने के लिए उसको एक बनी बनाई चीज़ मिली एंड ही हैज़ टू मेक डू विद व्हाटएवर हैज़ बीन डन. सो अगर आपकी फंडामेंटल डिटेलिंग रह गई, आपने इनएक्सेसिबल कॉर्नर्स बना दिए, आपके कोव्स नहीं हैं, आपने एडिक्वेटली जगह नहीं दी है कि जहाँ पर मैकेनाइज्ड इक्विपमेंट जो आपको चाहिए
उसकी स्टोरेज हो
वो स्टोरेज कहाँ होगा, चार्ज कहाँ होगा, रिपेयर कहाँ होगा, उसका भी टायर ख़राब होगा, उसकी बैटरी भी ख़राब होगी, उसके नोजल्स भी क्लीन करने होंगे, वगैरह वगैरह 50 चीज़ें होती हैं जो आप शुरू में नहीं सोचते हैं। फिर वो जगह निकाली जाती है कहीं से कि अरे यार इसको ना यहाँ जगह दे दो एक्सेट्रा, देन इट लुक्स लाइक अ मिस्टेक। सो मेरे हिसाब से वो इनपुट कि भाई क्या चाहिए, और दूसरा कि वो कैसे डिटेल हो कि वो चीज़ें एक्चुअली यूज़ हो जाएं। ये चीज़ें हम कुछ जगहों पर करते हैं, रेलवे के अंदर ही। रेलवे की जो रोलिंग स्टॉक है, जो वैगन्स हैं, जो इंजन्स हैं, आप उनके किसी भी पैरामीटर को चेंज नहीं कर सकते हैं।
ओके।
इसलिए आप जो भी चीज़ डिज़ाइन कर रहे हैं, चाहे वो ट्रैक की विड्थ है, चाहे वो ट्रैक और प्लेटफॉर्म का क्लियरेंस है, चाहे वो एक शेड्यूल ऑफ डायमेंशंस होता है एसओडी, वो एसओडी फॉलो हो रहा है कि नहीं, कैटनरी केबल कितना ऊपर से जाएगा, कितनी टॉलरेंस होनी चाहिए वगैरह, ये बड़ा रिजिडली डिसाइडेड और आप उसे चेंज नहीं कर सकते। इसीलिए आप स्टेशन नया बनाओ, पुराना बनाओ, आधा बनाओ, कंस्ट्रक्शन चल रहा है, ट्रेन नहीं रुकती। अगर उतनी ही रिजिडिटी आप सफाई में भी डाल दोगे तो सफाई भी नहीं रुकेगी, बट डालने की ज़रूरत है।
सो हमारे जो रेलवे मिनिस्टर हैं मिस्टर अश्विनी वैष्णव, एक ऑलरेडी बुलेट ट्रेन लॉन्च हो गई है फ्रॉम सूरत टू वापी। अब ऐसा लग रहा है कि जैसे इंडिया में बुलेट ट्रेन्स आ सकती हैं, इट्स अ पॉसिबिलिटी, बट डू यू थिंक कि हमारे रेलवे स्टेशन उन बुलेट ट्रेन्स को एक्सेप्ट कर सकते हैं अभी?
नहीं, हमारे रेलवे स्टेशन बुलेट ट्रेन को एक्सेप्ट नहीं करेंगे। बुलेट ट्रेन एक अलग सिस्टम है, जैसे मेट्रो एक अलग सिस्टम है, जैसे बसें एक अलग सिस्टम है, ट्रैम एक अलग सिस्टम है, बुलेट ट्रेन भी अलग सिस्टम है।
ओके।
उनकी जो ट्रैक्स की अलाइनमेंट होती है, उनका जिस तरह से कंस्ट्रक्शन होता है, जिस तरह के टॉलरेंसेस उसके अंदर होते हैं, वो नॉर्मल रेलवे ट्रैक में ना तो चाहिए ना हो सकते हैं। तो इंडिया में बुलेट ट्रेन पॉसिबल है, यस। क्या हमें ऐसा लग रहा था अब से 10 साल पहले? नो, समबडी हैड द विजन। और जो बात मैंने थोड़ी देर पहले कही इकोसिस्टम वाली, वो डेवलप हुआ होगा पिछले 10 साल में। दे मस्ट बी नेमलेस, फेसलेस हज़ारों लोग जो इस एफर्ट में पिछले 10 साल से लगे हुए हैं, और अब उसकी रियलिटी सामने आ रही है। और बुलेट ट्रेन डेफिनेटली चाहिए, इसलिए चाहिए क्योंकि हमारा बहुत बड़ा मुल्क है, और जितने लोगों को हमें अपनी इकोनॉमिक प्रॉस्पेरिटी के लिए मूव करना है, वो कॉम्बिनेशन ऑफ फैक्टर्स से होगा। हमें सब कुछ चाहिए, हमें जहाज़ भी चाहिए, हमें नॉर्मल स्पीड की ट्रेन भी चाहिए, हमें बुलेट ट्रेन भी चाहिए, हमें फेरी भी चाहिए, हमें ट्रैम भी चाहिए। हमारे 140 करोड़ लोग हैं, उनके 140 करोड़ आइडियाज़ हैं, उनकी 140 करोड़ एस्पिरेशंस हैं, और वो एस्पिरेशन मुझसे और आपसे अलग भी हो सकती हैं। तो हमें चाहिए तो सब कुछ, और ये पहला रन जिस वक्त हो जाएगा और सक्सेसफुल हो जाएगा, उसकी स्पीड बढ़ जाएगी, क्योंकि उसका जो इकोसिस्टम है उसका प्रूफ ऑफ कॉन्सेप्ट हो जाएगा कि हाँ हम कर सकते हैं। 500 चीज़ें हमने करी, 50 में प्रॉब्लम थे, उसको सॉल्व करो और उसके बाद फिर आगे बढ़ो। और ये हम देख चुके हैं, जो वंदे भारत ट्रेन इनिशियली लॉन्च हुई थी और जो अब हो रही हैं, उसकी स्पीड में ज़मीन और आसमान का फर्क है। पहले जो फर्स्ट ट्रेन लगी थी, मेरे को याद है, हमने जब पहली बार ट्रैवल किया है, वो सो सरप्राइज पीपल आर टेकिंग फोटोग्राफ्स। बट टुडे यू नो, इफ यू गो टू न्यू दिल्ली स्टेशन और यू गो टू एनी ऑफ द स्टेशन, देयर आर 15 ऑफ देम व्हिच आर देयर। सो ये डेफिनेटली होगा और चाहिए।
So, as you said that there are different infrastructure required for bullet trains and for normal trains. So, do we have enough space for infrastructure for bullet trains to have? Yes.
Yes. देखो, स्पेस की कोई कमी नहीं है इंडिया में।
Okay.
लैंड की कोई कमी नहीं है, एंड डिस्पाइट वट एवर स्ट्रगल्स वी मे हैव, हमारे पास पैसे की भी कोई कमी नहीं है। तो ये कोई कंस्ट्रेंट नहीं है कि हमारे पास स्पेस नहीं है, हमारे पास स्पेस है। हमारी स्पेस हो सकता है कि कहीं वेस्टेड हो या हिडन हो। हिंदुस्तान इकलौता मुल्क है दुनिया में जहाँ ज़्यादातर सिटी सेंटर्स में स्पेस अवेलेबल है लेकिन यूज़ नहीं हो रही है, अगेन फॉर वेरियस रीजंस ऑफ द पास्ट। तो स्पेस कोई कंस्ट्रेंट नहीं है। मैन्युफैक्चरिंग एबिलिटी, कंस्ट्रक्शन एबिलिटी, डिज़ाइन इंजीनियरिंग में अभी गैप है, चाहिए उसमें और लोग।
एक हाई स्पीड रेलवे स्टेशन और टर्मिनल में क्या डिफरेंस है एज कम्पेयर टू नॉर्मल स्पीड रेलवे स्टेशन और टर्मिनल?
जो रेल इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर है वो तो है ही अलग।
हाँ.
मतलब वो तो आपको जिस तरह के वाइब्रेटिंग लोड्स या जो ट्रेन की स्पीड्स आपको चाहिए वो अलग ही हैं.
Okay.
उसका ट्रैक्शन अलग है, उसके ट्रैक्स अलग हैं, वो सारी चीज़ें अलग हैं. मैं डायरेक्टली इन्वॉल्व नहीं हूँ हाई स्पीड रेल स्टेशन के डिज़ाइन में, इसलिए मैं अथॉरिटेटिवली नहीं कह सकता हूँ. मगर जो मैंने पढ़ा है उसके बारे में और जो भी थोड़ा बहुत सीखा है, मेरे ख्याल में लार्जली वो सिमिलर है, क्योंकि जो ट्रैवलर है वो सेम है, उसके जो नीड्स हैं वो सेम है, उसके जो एस्पिरेशंस हैं वो सेम है. ऑब्वियसली एक एक्सपेक्टेशन होता है कि आप एक हायर क्वालिटी ऑफ ट्रांसपोर्ट पे जा रहे हो, तो जो आपके इंटरफेस पॉइंट्स हैं वो भी एक हायर क्वालिटी के होंगे. दूसरा, फॉर द टाइम बीइंग कुछ साल तक आपको पैसेंजर स्ट्रैटिफिकेशन मिलेगा. इसमें हर एक कोई बंदा बुलेट ट्रेन में नहीं जाएगा, क्योंकि उसकी जो प्राइसिंग होगी एंड राइटली सो, और जो उसकी फैसिलिटी रिक्वायरमेंट है, मतलब आपके 1 घंटे की कीमत, मेरे 1 घंटे की कीमत
डिफरेंट है,
या जो आदमी आपको सपोर्ट कर रहा है उसको वो फ़र्क है. तो क्या आप प्रीमियम दोगे 5 घंटे बचाने के लिए? हो सकता है कुछ लोग दें कुछ ना दें. तो वो स्ट्रैटिफिकेशन कुछ साल रहेगा, till the time we come to a point where our per capita also increases to match with whatever we want it to be, and then you'll find more and more. So वो एक टिपिंग पॉइंट आता है हर नेशन की जिंदगी में. मुझे ऐसा लगता है कि शायद हमारी जनरेशन वो देखेगी.
ओके. 2040 के रेलवे स्टेशंस आज के रेलवे स्टेशन से कैसे डिफरेंट लगेंगे?
वही बन रहे हैं आजकल, क्योंकि ये पिछले 4-5 साल से स्पीड बढ़ी है इसके अंदर. मेरे ख्याल में जो पहले स्टेशंस जो फोरफ्रंट पे चल रहे हैं कंस्ट्रक्शन के, उनका कंप्लीशन होना चाहिए अगले साल ऑनवर्ड्स. और इन स्टेशंस में मुझे नहीं लगता कि अगले 15 साल के अंदर अंदर कोई बहुत बड़ा बदलाव आएगा. बहुत सारी सीख मिलेगी, कुछ चीज़ें सक्सेसफुल होंगी, कुछ चीज़ें सक्सेसफुल नहीं होंगी. मेरा मानना ये है कि 2040 में एक तो एवरेज स्पीड ऑफ ट्रेन्स बढ़ चुकी होगी, अच्छी खासी बढ़ गई होगी. हमारी पॉपुलेशन का जो प्रोजेक्शन रेल यात्रियों का है वो पीक की तरफ होगा, तो ये स्टेशंस अब 2040 के आसपास जा कर के उस पीक कैपेसिटी ऑफ पैसेंजर ट्रैफिक को एक्सपीरियंस करेंगे जिनके लिए हम सोच रहे हैं कि हमने डिज़ाइन किया है. हम सक्सेसफुल होंगे या नहीं ये भविष्य बताएगा. बहुत सारी चीज़ें हमारी समझ में आएंगी कि हमने सोचा था कि इसको 15 साल तक कुछ करने की ज़रूरत नहीं, लेकिन इसको मेंटेनेंस की ज़रूरत है या चेंज की ज़रूरत है, ऐसा भी होगा. मगर जहाँ मुझे लगता है सबसे बड़ा चेंज होगा वो एक्चुअली ट्रेन में नहीं होगा. मुझे लगता है पर्सनल मोबिलिटी में फ़र्क आ जाएगा.
ओके.
जो चीज़ें आज बस ओरिएंटेड हैं या टैक्सी ओरिएंटेड हैं या इंटरनल कंबशन इंजन ओरिएंटेड हैं, वो शायद ड्रोन और पर्सनल मोबिलिटी पे चेंज हो जाएंगी. और एक चीज़ जो मुझे लगता है कि हम अभी एडिक्वेटली ध्यान नहीं दे रहे हैं, वो है मोबिलिटी थ्रू ड्रोन्स. किसी भी इंफ्रा प्रोजेक्ट के अंदर ड्रोन स्टेशन का कोई प्रोविज़न फ़िलहाल है नहीं. जो मैंने डिज़ाइन किया उसमें भी नहीं है. मगर मुझे ऐसा लगता है कि ये एक ऐसी डेवलपमेंट है जो बहुत तेज़ी से आएगी विद द ग्रोथ ऑफ AI,
ऑफ कोर्स,
मैनेजमेंट ऑफ एयर स्पेस थ्रू AI, ऑटोमेशन एंड सेफ्टी ऑफ दीज मोटर्स एंड अफोर्डेबिलिटी ऑफ पर्सनल ट्रांसपोर्ट. सो ये कॉन्सेप्ट्स लॉन्च हुए हैं चाइना में लास्ट ईयर.
दैट्स व्हाट आई वाज अबाउट टू आस्क.
जी, ये कॉन्सेप्ट्स ऑलरेडी लॉन्च हुए हैं. और अगेन मेरा मानना ये है कि इनका अडेप्टेशन बहुत ही जल्दी होगा, बिकॉज एयर स्पेस में सिवाय मैनेजमेंट के कुछ नहीं करना. सो लॉन्ग एज वी कैन फिगर आउट अ वे where drones can fly at different levels at different speeds and cross each other without the kind of chaos that happens on road. It will be a quicker uptake than surface transport. So ये जो interface है ये बड़ा interesting है. और मेरे ख्याल में जैसा हमने पहले बात करी कि जो 10 साल से कम एक्सपीरियंस वाले लोग हैं वो इसका सोल्यूशन भी ढूंढेंगे.
I have to say this has been a really interesting podcast. I never thought that I would be talking about a topic or learning about a topic which is so different from my daily work. It's been enriching. It's been something that I really wish that people listen to, not only because it's very easy for people to pinpoint what's not going right, but as we spoke about, there are so many stakeholders that influence a certain project, and in a railway station where there's so many stakeholders, the volume is a lot of plethora of people who are interacting with that space. So to get a perspective from an architect as to how it is designed and what are the pitfalls and what are things that are taken into consideration has been truly enriching to say the least. Thank you for taking the time out, and thank you for doing this with me. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you, Atharva. It's been a pleasure for me as well. And I do want to sign off by saying that it's been a pleasure speaking about my experience of the last few days or last few years. But at no point of time do I claim that I understand or know everything completely of what I've spoken about. So मेरा जो सोचना है इस आपके इस एफर्ट से वो ये कि अगर ज़्यादा लोग और ख़ास करके जो प्रोफेशनल्स इन्वॉल्व हैं वो इसके बारे में बात करें तो मुझे ऐसा लगता है कि बड़े अच्छे रिजल्ट्स सामने बहुत जल्दी आएंगे और उनकी इम्प्लीमेंटेशन भी होगी.
Lovely.
Thank you.
Thank you,
It's been a
Akhil.
pleasure.